Maneva na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
As a judge, for me is humbling.
And so you've been there since for how long? 4 years now?
Oh, Bernard, the time flies. I've been there since May 2020.
In the heat of COVID.
So May 26th of May, I have done 6 years.
6 years.
Solitude confinement.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm in my 7th year, like joke.
Wow. What switch mentally does a legal person need to make from being on the bar to getting on the bench?
It's a different place. It's a different place. As a lawyer, you receive instructions. Again, depending on your value system and ethics as a lawyer, lawyers can be just tunneled and focused. I tried in my practice to be a little different. I still saw myself as an instrument of justice. And so what I did, even for my client, ultimately has to be fair. It has to be just. It has to be conscionable. It has to be equitable. So I would tell my client, it's not my business to help you overreach or cheat another person. I won't do it, even as a lawyer. So the switch didn't make it. It wasn't a big jolt for me, except that as a judge, you're now in the listening position, and then you have to learn to listen. You have to accommodate, endure arguments that are not resonating with you, but you have to be measured and controlled in your response, because you always have the final say. But what is, for me, and I'm sure you will get to that question, the biggest challenge for me at the level of the Supreme Court is where you are evaluating matters and heading into a conclusion that that the recipients of this verdict have to live with it for the rest of their lives. There's no other fallback. That's, for me, the most difficult part of my role. I mean, of our role as the highest court. And I guess most of my peers in the court share in that sentiment, because we know that when we are done, it is done. And for those of us who have, and all of us do, we start all our conferences and precedents with prayer. So, and we take our oath, asking God to be our help. It means that there's a shared recognition that there's an ultimate judge. So imagine when you get the hard end of the stick, an unjust outcome. What do? The person will fall to that ultimate judge. Wow. So that's, for me, the most difficult.
It's very humbling.
Yes.
And it's onerous, which means that in a sense you sit in the place of God.
It's frightening. Yeah. And they call you my Lord. Which Lord are you? Lord of who?
Which is why you don't take it lightly, the decision to say yes. So even though you want to serve your country, I suspect you have to do a lot of self-introspection before you say yes to it.
It's a difficult place. You have to get to the point where you think that you can do this in all sincerity. Yeah, because it's it's a very slippery place to be. But as I said, it's fulfilling. You can go home and sleep well when you think that you have done honest, sincere, good service to God and country. You've followed the law, you've upheld your oath, and that you've done justice without fear, favor, affection, ill will.
So listen, this is a special interview we are doing, because it's not very common to have a justice of the Supreme Court grant an interview. So there's the Supreme Court at 150 committee has agreed for this interview to happen on some specific lines, which is what we are going to follow. And I also need to say again that even the documentary we are putting together for the Supreme Court at 150 is part of that special dispensation, which has given us some access to some justices of the Supreme Court, myself and the production team. So I'd like to thank you for coming in. The impression I get, and this is my preliminary before I get to the substance of the interview, the impression I get talking to justices of the courts is that it's a very lonely position. And the way we are free to do anything, I can go and sit anywhere and eat any food, say anything, discuss anything. I feel like you can't even in your, unless you are home with trusted people, there's a lot of things you can't do. So you use the word, it's confinement. But I feel you need to explain, like being a judge is not just the fact that you must be true to the law, but even the way you live has to change. Correct?
You are a judge in court, you are a judge out of court, you are a judge wherever you go. So the code and the expectations of the office are demanding on your personal liberties. The reason is because of the principle that justice must not only be done, but it must appear to be done. And so if you over socialize, you over familiarize, you over engage, you over indulge with people. So somebody sees me having coffee with her and laughing and chatting and tapping each other. The next day they walk into court and there I'm sitting, and either she's representing CTFM or representing herself or her mother and standing in front of me. How is that person going to believe that you can be fair and impartial in having observed such a familiar interaction between you? So apart from the job keeping you busy, the ethics of the job, you don't need anyone to tell you. Will tell you that you can no longer run around and do all the things that you used to do.
Normal people can
That's
do.
why some men and I haven't seen each other in maybe 5-6 years. Yes, you, the last time I saw you, apart from that lounge, and you saw that when you called me, I didn't even stand up, and when you were looking for me, I had left the room
quickly.
So you, for those of us who come from a previously very intense and engaged social lifestyle, you must still be a human being, but be mindful of the demands of that office.
So my first question under this rubric is, I was wondering why we are doing 150 years of the Supreme Court and not 150 years of the Judiciary, because it's quite clear to me that we have placed the Supreme Court at a certain position for which its existence must be commemorated. Yeah, so we could have said we are doing 150 years of justice delivery.
Right.
But why is the court so important in this conversation?
First, because of its standing in the hierarchy of courts. And then secondly, the scope and nature of its mandate.
Okay.
When you were talking about football and adjudication, and I'm sure those who understand the nuances of modern football know that there are other referees, other linesmen, other people monitoring, but there's this one guy in the middle of the pitch who has the whistle.
Yes.
And he makes the final call. So that guy becomes, every blame goes to him, every credit goes to him. He is the captain of the ship. So in that hierarchy of courts and in the administration of justice, the Supreme Court, as I said in our initial conversation, is the highest court. It's the final court. First of all appeals that end up in the Supreme Court from all the other courts. It supervises all the other courts. Then the Supreme Court is also the only court, because like that game of football, and I heard you referring to FIFA rules, the rules of engagement in a modern democracy is our constitution. So the constitution is the rule book, how we govern ourselves, how we live with each other, how we manage the branches of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, the only court that has the exclusive mandate to interpret that rules book, the basic law of the land, and draw the red lines and blow the whistle and say stop and show you the red card is that Supreme Court. No other court performs that role when it comes to the enforcement. The guy who could send you off the pitch And we saw it in competitions for who takes over the command of governance in the country. And so that makes the Supreme Court peculiar, because it's the ultimate court, is the last court of appeal, is the only court that interprets and enforces the Constitution, is the court that maintains the checks and balance in the administration. It draws the red line for the legislature, it draws the line for the executive, and for every agency in this construct of the modern state called Ghana. So it is that important.
So for our democracy to survive, not only must the judiciary be strong and independent, the Supreme Court must have pride of place in how it becomes like an arbiter of power between the three arms, correct?
Because ultimately that's really the big card, isn't it? The World Cup is the big card. The basic law and ensuring that everyone plays by the rule, because democracy is essentially the rule of law. So the ultimate repository of the highest responsibility, all the other courts, the magistrate who is resolving the quarrel in the compound house is as important as the judge in the Supreme Court. But ultimately, that magistrate's errors, indiscretions, mistakes will end,
Are not fatal.
They are not fatal. The big issues, so I used to call constitutional law big issue law. Yes, it's not about commerce. It is about our lives. It's about our future. It is about the direction of our country and society. And so the court that is seized with that peculiar jurisdiction is unique to itself.
If you look at the 150 years of this court's existence, how well do you think it has acquitted itself in delivering the benefits of democracy? And I ask this because, look, as you said, we are in the rule of law, and law is a tool for development. Most of what we discuss on this program are development related. And there are people who believe that if the law is sound and it's interpreted correctly, it can organize society in a way that frees people to develop better. So in reflecting on Gold Coast to Ghana, because Ghana is 70 years next year, but the Supreme Court is 150.
Yeah.
So clearly the court has predated the country as a nation state. Are you able to walk us, not with specific details, but are you able to say, look, in 150 years, the Supreme Court has done this, that, or the other, which has preserved the union? And you know what I'm saying? So I want to speak to how well it has helped to craft this ship of state.
Okay, so I mean, in terms of the history, yes, the court predates the state, and the reason is because the state itself has gone through a lot of evolution from when the first colonialists arrived at the coast and then began to exercise jurisdiction in the space they occupy. Then they have to get into negotiated arrangements with, they called as the natives, who they met on the coastline, largely the Fanti states. So it actually predates, it goes before, you're going to 1844, that bond of 1844, there was a compromise about the extent to which colonial administrators could extend essentially criminal justice into the native states. And that then evolved until 1876. And we went through, you know, we were organized essentially as territories and colonies, and the different Supreme Court system. We, at some point in about 1866, we were reorganized. The Supreme Court was dissolved, and then Ghana, what was the Gold Coast, Sierra Leone, Lagos were put together under one colonial administrative territory, and had a different kind of Supreme Court headed by a chief magistrate, 4 judges who oversaw that. Then fast forward, by 1876, Gold Coast as Gold Coast had become reconstituted. And that is why we draw the line from we count our existence from 1876, when the Supreme Court of the Gold Coast then began. Prior to all of this, even by 1876, whilst we emerged, there was again under colonial administration, a West Africa Court of Appeal. So where decisions of the Supreme Court will go to WACA to be determined. And then to the Privy Council in England. So you then took a decision and you could appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. Fast forward, even in 1957, when we became independent, our decisions were still appealable to the Privy Council.
Wow.
Yes.
Until 1960.
Until 1960, when we became a republic and fully severed ourselves, then this court, the Supreme Court, became fully fledged. But again, even in that journey, you will see that because the Supreme Court has always been at the apex, is the referee that blows the whistle. So you see that Donald Trump is unhappy with the referee and is blaming the referee. So this Supreme Court has been casualty when power has changed. So in 1960, we became a republic. The Supreme Court became the ultimate court. 1966, our first setback to our democratic experiment, and the first casualty was the Supreme Court. Because you are the Trumps will go for you. And so then it was reinstated in the 1969 Constitution. Then 72.
After another coup.
The Supreme Court was abolished again. And then because you see, you can't in an organized, civilized state live and make progress and develop, particularly if you want to govern yourself by the rule of law, without that ultimate refereeing by the highest court. So in the 79 Constitution, the Supreme Court was reconstituted. Then we had another coup. Fast forward, since 1992 in the Fourth Republic, we have endured, consolidated, and we are hoping that never again. I mean,
but even in this Fourth Republic from 92, some people point to some seminal cases that have consolidated the democracy in reference to, say, elections, voting, matters, and even resolving electoral disputes. Are you able to pinpoint one or two of the critical cases the court has dealt with in that 33-year-old journey that have solidified this Fourth Republic to make it the longest we've had?
Oh yes, I mean the especially because they are big issue law, legal issues, they tend to engage the public, and so we all woke up one day in 2013, and we are all glued to our TVs. And everyone became a lawyer. Everyone is a law student.
I tell you,
listening to how the Supreme Court was going to determine who was the duly elected, validly elected candidate, presidential candidate in our 2012 election. I mean, Bernard, having regard to the sentiments, the vested interests that are implicated in an electoral outcome and who ultimately wins the mandate. If you didn't have an amicable forum where we can all go to, sit day in, day out and wait and listen and wait for an adjudication that, in spite of our differences, suspicions, the court is controlled, that at least we all subscribe to.
It would have been chaos.
It's chaos. We will take ourselves back to 1876. I mean, it will ruin everything that we have. But the court handed down that decision in the 2012 election and it resolved the matter. Come 2020 again, there's another electoral election petition. And it is the Supreme Court alone that has the mandate under the Constitution to adjudicate presidential election petitions. No other court does. In addition to other election-related matters, if we have the benefit, it's an exclusive jurisdiction. And so again, thankfully, in 2020, the Supreme Court acquitted itself well. And again,
so the public is trusting the court's role as an arbiter of power.
Absolutely. Otherwise, we would have fractured.
So this is a special edition of The Point of View as part of the Supreme Court at 150 years old. We're speaking to Justice Emmanuel Kulendi of the Supreme Court. We spoke to him on the City Breakfast Show earlier this morning. When we come back, my colleagues Caleb Kuda, Richard.
Some of the misconceptions people have had about the Supreme Court that we can use this process or opportunity to disabuse.
Misconceptions, plenty. I call them myths.
Right.
Yes, I mean, because first of all, you're a citizen, you become a lawyer, and then you become a judge. I mean, some people think that, you know, judges decide cases based on politics,
okay,
rather than based on law. Okay, and some Ghanaians think that way. I call it a myth because it's the judge's textbook is the law. Of course, every judge is a human being. The judge, I'm sure, votes. The judge may have political preferences, but you take an oath, and you take the oath to adjudicate cases according to the law,
right,
the evidence, the facts that are demonstrated before you. And so you will, if you go do the analysis of judges who have made decisions, you will see that judges have reached conclusions irrespective of which president appointed them.
right.
And that's also because the framers of the Constitution, and like in every democracy, are very intentional. Judges have a security of tenure. Okay, and it's intended to secure your independence. Judges even have security of post-retirement benefits.
Right.
Is to create the environment that you can thrive, you can be independent-minded, you can deal with the matter without fear or favor, looking to the left or to the right. But there are always skeptics, and there are people who think that, oh, no, the judge decides this case this way or votes that way because of who appointed. But somebody has to appoint the judge. And in terms of the constitutional structure, it is the president, and through a certain nomination process and vetting, and you'll see the built-in mechanisms to make sure that, you know, no president can appoint you to the court if you don't meet first the eligibility and qualification requirements.
It's merit-based.
And so, yeah, it's a myth that judges decide cases according to politics. There's another myth that the judiciary is controlled by the executive because judges are appointed by the president. That's what and then judges, if a judgment is unpopular, then the judgment is wrong.
Okay.
It's a myth.
Okay.
You don't have to like the judgment. In fact, there are times that even judges we reach conclusions we don't like, but that is the dictate of the law. And if you want to show fidelity to the law and your oath, you have to reach that conclusion. And judges take decisions that they themselves affect their relatives, affect their friends. And you know, this is a comment, and I'm comfortable to do this because I said it in open court. We just handed a decision last week, and that decision, I said, listen, this decision affects all of us sitting on this bench. And everyone, but it's a duty you have to perform. And so the decision doesn't have to be popular. It has to be consistent with law and with the tenets of law.
Right.
There's also another myth that, you know, justice is delayed because judges are either inefficient or because judges are corrupt. Law is a technical exercise. There are rules of procedure that are very intricate. They are amenable to abuse and manipulation by lawyers and litigants who have a bad case. They want to drag the case. And the judge always has to maintain a delicate balance of sitting in the middle and avoiding being drawn or appearing to have descended into the arena of conflict. And so litigants and their lawyers can play the book, and a good lawyer who has those ethical flaws can run and delay the system. And the judge sometimes as frustrated as a litigant who has a good cause.
Right.
But you must manage that sentiment and play the process. Of course, we have also other verifiable problems, logistics, judges still having to write longhand, caseload. And of course, sometimes also the skill and efficiency of a judge and his ability to very efficiently manage caseloads can delay things. But it's not, so the delays there are a variety of reasons for the delays. Other than that, the judge is either incompetent or the judge is corrupt. And there's another myth that, the Supreme Court, people think that the Supreme Court, because of what I have said about the Supreme Court being the ultimate referee, can intervene or adjudicate every conceivable matter. The Supreme Court itself is governed by the Constitution and can only do such things as are warranted and permitted by the Constitution, and in relation to which is vested with jurisdiction.
Right.
So the idea that every conceivable grievance, something you are not happy with, the Supreme Court can do that. It's a myth. Right. I could go on.
My Lord, if I may, on the matter you just raised, respectfully, there's a suggestion that the constitutional architecture that sets up our Supreme Court and the wide expanse of matters it's ceded with the jurisdiction to hear and determine makes it almost impossible to ensure efficiency at the topmost court, and that perhaps it's about time we re-looked at the constitutional architecture or framework setting up the Supreme Court as to narrow the nature and caliber of cases that travel to the Supreme Court, so that certain matters ordinarily should terminate maybe at the High Court or Court of Appeal. Of course, there are matters of elections that terminate at the Court of Appeal. If you're looking at matters having to do with, election of MPs and related matters, and that because of the character flaw, the ethical flaws that are there in some lawyers, they are able to hold trials in abeyance, go up to the Supreme Court, come back, start a new process within, a week or two, they are back before the Supreme Court, and that we should pick up lessons from, advanced jurisdictions where the scope of matters determined by the Supreme Court is so narrow that it does not admit some of these excesses that you so eloquently spoke about.
Well, I mean, look, they say life is full of choices, right? So some jurisdictions or societies decided that we want our Supreme Court to be concerned about what I call big issues. So let them deal with exclusively constitutional matters. Given our journey from independence all the way to at the time that people sat around like this, holding deliberations about the kind of Supreme Court we wanted to have and what is the scope of the jurisdiction we wanted to exercise. The terms of the current Constitution is what the framers of the Constitution thought works for us. Are there problems with the scope? Yes. Do we need to rethink whatever you are doing? You must keep evaluating it from time to time and trying to make it better. Okay, but so you know, look, is there one case that is more important than the other? And as a citizen, should you have the right to fight your cause to the ultimate court? Or it's fair to say if you end at the Court of Appeal, that's the end. The door is shut on you. So there's a case to be made for giving every citizen access to the highest court, because it is their court. The justice emanates from the people, and judges basically just do this on behalf of the people. But society, in its wisdom, can decide that, you know what, we want to limit it.
Yeah.
Maybe you need more efficiency, more numbers, more logistics. Then we need to work the rules and use the rules to weed out what is doable, what is not doable. Because I'm a judge, I don't want to complain that the work is too much, because nobody forced me. I volunteered to serve, and it's a man has got to do what he's got to do. I mean, that's the job you've taken. There are all sorts of people doing really hard job. You know, the doctor walks out, and then when you go to the hospital, sometimes the number of people you see sitting in front of the doctor's consultation room, you are like, gee, how is this going to happen?
Yeah.
You walk into a ward and you see all sorts of patients, and there's this doctor or two or three of them. So you go into your courtroom, the courtroom is packed. You're not the only one who has a full plate in front of you.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is trying to juggle what they have to do. Of course, we must get more efficient. We use technology, we use higher expertise, and then we put on the job also people who are committed to doing the job and doing it well.
That ties in beautifully to what I was going to ask with respect to reforms. What kind of reforms we've tried to roll out in just the recent past to ensure that we have more accessible justice delivery system for the everyday Ghanaian?
A lot is going on. I mean, and a lot has been going on, but you know, the whole idea that the service itself, and then judges don't talk, they don't get into the court of public opinion. So you don't tend to get a full flavor of what's going on. But the judicial service has had a variety of reforms. Number one, the service is leveraging technology, e-justice, to allow for e-filing, virtual courts. Lawyers don't have to travel, get stuck in traffic, the build up in the court to adjudicate their cases. You can participate in a trial from the comfort of your chamber. And then, of course, we've moved from longhand courts to mechanized automatic recording courts, because when a judge has to record all those proceedings longhand, it's just an impossible task. We have not fully eliminated these, but we're leveraging technology and systems that will make us do this work faster and more efficiently. Number two, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Justice for All. I mean, where they through the initiative of Her Ladyship Georgina Wood, a program that has is still ongoing. We take the courts to the prisons for isolated cases, people. And interesting, it's the result of very good work done by this good friend of mine. He's a journalist who did Locked and Forgotten. And that caused the judicial service to look into people who've been in remand for undue periods of time. It expedites justice. We have a program of court-assisted ADR where judges are enabling parties and litigants to opt, if they so wish, for alternative dispute resolution.
Right.
One, because it's amicable, it's conciliatory. You can do it by mediation, by arbitration, by conciliation. But the essential character of this is that it's very amicable. You don't burn bridges. You can shake hands and hug at the end of it. You lose some, you win some. And ultimately, the resolution you reach is treated by the court as a consent judgment. And so it's not amenable to the automatic right of appeal and protracted litigation, etc., etc. A good way to bring disputes to finality in a short, quick way.
Right.
Recently, you'd have heard that we have now introduced even afternoon court systems where, because there are not enough courtrooms, even if you have enough judges. So one judge uses the room and finishes a normal day. Another judge takes over and does, because that's the way to offload the backlog.
Right.
We are not out of the woods. It's still a lot of work.
Right.
In the last few years, you'll see that under His Lordship Justice Enini Abua, we built courts across the country, and trying to make sure that every district has a court. Not all still have. My district doesn't have a court yet, even though I'm a judge. But we've built courthouses. They are recruiting magistrates and judges and assigning them all over the place. If you've been following the news, I was in Wa just 2-3 weeks ago, inspecting a court complex that is under construction. And if you see the courthouses that the communities have put up with over the years, and to think that this is a regional capital, you will see that. So all of these are efforts, reform to increase access to justice, bring greater efficiency, and enable justice delivery and take justice to the people.
Okay, so I have questions on what we are doing to celebrate the 150th anniversary, but I want to bring in Kakra now, who has a question for you.
Yes, my lord. So you talked about your 6 years or so of confinement from active social interaction, and I think it's not lost on all of us the amount or the quantum of work that Justice of the Supreme Court has on their table. Mine is rather a soft question. What does His Lordship do to wind down, to relax?
I mean, speaking for myself, even when I was a lawyer, I don't remember that. I'm not in that winding down league. No, I mean, I haven't had that leisure. Maybe I'll have it in the future. I mean, my friends have tried to take me to go do golf, to go do anything. I think maybe, I was going to say church, but even church, I don't get to do church that. So it's a life of work. And if it's your calling, you enjoy it. If it's your calling, you enjoy it, and somehow once it becomes your lifestyle and I mean, I see all these people winding down and I think they are winding up. Yeah. Because I mean, you're out and you can get into trouble.
Yeah.
So
okay.
My lord, if I may,
Yes,
there's this question from a listener who wants to ask, because you broached it somewhere in your submission much earlier. So the listener says, the elephant in the room, what is the Supreme Court doing to deal with perceived corruption in justice delivery?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. The person says perceived corruption. I mean, we're all conscious of the Afrobarometer survey, which shows that, I mean, half of Ghanaians tend to think that, judges are corrupt and judicial officers are corrupt. I'm not one of those who will say that there are no corrupt judges, there are no corrupt judicial officers. Then they must have reigned from some other planet and they are not Ghanaians. Okay, so the judges are just a cross section of Ghanaians. And so to the extent that our society it has corrupt people, some of them have filtered into the judiciary. The judiciary presents a very predatory and opportunistic avenue for somebody who is already disposed to corruption to manifest that outrageous disposition fully. So it is there. But they are also very honest dedicated men and women of integrity who are committed to doing their work, and they do it with everything in them. So we all recalled what happened with the number 12, and then and again, I say judges don't talk, but day in, day out, people are being flushed out of the system. But again, there are considerations of due process, right? And anybody who is a judge who was first a lawyer, then they become a judge. So when you're dealing with them, you can't be arbitrary and you cannot compromise due process. But there's a lot going on, from training on ethics to constant reminders. And if you are busted, and I say to people, listen, the population, judges don't give themselves bribe. It is litigants and Ghanaians who will offer the judge the bribe, even for the judge to contemplate it. So stop bribing your judges, because the judge is not supposed to sell justice to you.
Right.
Number one. Number two, if you know a judge who is corrupt, expose the judge. You know, the judge who is collecting bribe is somebody's husband, is somebody's father, is somebody's uncle, is somebody. So if you know them and you love them, you accommodate them. Maybe we are a corrupt society, but let's create the judiciary that we want and the judges that we want.
Right.
But within the system, if you are exposed, if you are caught, the system, the judiciary will not tolerate you, because it's very distraughting that, I mean, if I sit somewhere or I get somewhere and then somebody says you judges are corrupt, because in the first place, if I wanted money, I wouldn't have quit private practice to become a judge. Okay, and so I'm definitely not a corrupt judge, and I know many of my colleagues who are more upright than me. I mean, dedicated, long-suffering. They've done this job, and that is what they want to do. But are there bad nuts? Yes, they are. We must continue to find them out, fish them out, and continue to purge the system.
Very well. So in wrapping up, my lord, we want to look at some of the activities we've rolled out. We know that we launched the anniversary celebration on the 16th of April, but what's more is ahead of us as we look into the year?
In relation to the anniversary, it's a packed menu. There are it's the whole idea is to take the court to the people whose court it is, and we're just leveraging this very momentous occasion, 150 years of the existence of the court. So there are public lectures. We've already had some in Accra, Cape Coast. We're going to Kumasi. His Majesty Otumfuo has graciously agreed to host the lecture and offered his hall for that. And then there are quiz programs to bring young people on board and get them to engage on issues of the judiciary, because the future belongs to them. If you look at the theme, we're looking at the past,
right,
we're evaluating the present, but also looking into the future. So there's going to be a whole what do you know competition around courts and the rule of law and due process. Then we're going to have at every stage, each of the public lectures is accompanied with a legal outreach program.
Okay.
Where, judges, lawyers, judicial service staff will avail themselves to answer questions such as the one from your listener. I mean, this whole idea that judges are unapproachable and they are not, the judges were nicely decorated servants of the people, and what we do on behalf of the population.
Right.
So it's a packed program, and it's all intended to reach out to announce the presence of the court and the judicial service, and then all the different kinds of things that are going on. The Chief Justice is very excited about it. It's providence that he gets to lead the court at this point in time, and so is the reason I'm here, and I'm sure that yes, and it tells you the effort, the Chief Justice and the chair of the committee, my brother, His Lordship Ajay Frimpong, they really want to make this a people's anniversary,
right,
and make the Supreme Court the people's court,
right,
and avail ourselves to address a lot of these myths and misunderstandings and misapprehensions about what we do and how we do it, and that you cannot criticize judges. The judges are your judges. You can criticize judges. You can analyze what we write and hold opinions, however harsh. Just don't deride, ridicule, and trash the system, because if we trash that system and there's no avenue to amicably resolve our differences, then we are headed for chaos.
Right. So I'm sure with respect to the locations and time for the other activities, there will be various announcements, public information subsequently, so people get to know how they can get to be a part of some of these exercises.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes. As I said, there are programs in Accra, there are programs in Kumasi, and a couple of public lectures.
Right.
They will be announced in due course, and I think there's something also in Tamale.
Okay.
No, not Tamale. Kumasi covers the northern sector, and there'll be floats. On each of the events.
Okay.
Yes.
That's amazing, Sky and Kakra. We've been talking to His Lordship Emmanuel Yoni Kulendi.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Venerable.
been a good conversation.
Yes, it's been an eye-opener in many respects for those of us who, are still learning at his feet. It's great listening to him speak as a respected jurist, and a man who shaped our understanding of the law when he was practicing as a private legal practitioner. Interviewed him a number of occasions on Eyewitness News, and sitting by him now as a man on the highest court of the land, and listening to him, such a privilege. And we are thankful. We thank you so much, sir, for making the time to be with us this morning.
I'm grateful. It's my privilege. But let me just take the opportunity. I know your time is up, but let me take the opportunity to say, even high up there is the most humbling place, because you remain a student, you remain learning as a jurist, you are always researching, you are analyzing, you are processing and filtering things. It's the point at which the High Court judge is a judge, and he makes the court. Even the magistrate is the magistrate. He walk in and he's the king, right? In that Supreme Court, for there to be a Supreme Court, there are 5 justices. 5. And it is those 5 justices who constitute the court and who can make a valid decision. If there's a review, the 5 goes to 7. So either 5, 7, or 9, or even 11. So it's a learning place, it's a humbling place. And so we remain students of the law. You don't give up learning, because you can imagine when you put 5 people around the table over the smallest issue,
They will disagree.
and ultimately you vote on where you stand on that issue, and that becomes the decision of the court.
PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal e Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.